Welcoming John Gibbons from the Anfield Wrap today. Let's just go back to sort of the beginning and how impressed have you been with Slot so far? And also Jurgen in the transition from the end of his tenure into basically it's been a seamless transition for Slot, hasn't it, so far at Liverpool?
Yeah, it has, and a lot of people deserve credit for that. Like you say, that Jurgen Klopp first of all, who left the squad in a really healthy place, who helped start the rebuild. There's a little clip going around of him talking to the squad after the game, and he uses the phrase Liverpool 2.0. So after the last game, sorry, the season, he used the phrase Liverpool 2.0, and he sort of started that build. And you're seeing lots of those players playing really well for Liverpool now, as well as some of the old guard, of course, too. And so, yeah, so Jurgen deserves a lot of credit for leaving the squad in a really good place, and it being such a nice job for another manager to come into, which is what Arne Slot always argued. When he was told that it was a tricky job because you're following this huge person in Liverpool's history. He always argued it was actually a great job, and he's been proven right. Of course, you've got to give credit to whoever appointed him. I think it's a little bit sort of unsure who that was. I think Richard Hughes' official first day was the same as Arne Slot's first day, but I don't think any of us really believed that he was actually doing gardening on gardening leave, and I'm sure he was involved in some way in the recruitment of Slot. But whoever it was, and they've obviously got that right, because I think once Alonso made himself unavailable, there wasn't an obvious choice. I don't think there wasn't one that seemed like, well, he's the outstanding young manager in European football, so you have to get him. So it was more a case of, I guess, of looking around and looking at who's the best fit for Liverpool, and they've certainly found that. They've found a manager who plays in a way that suits the players, and that's apparently the metrics that's sort of they were looking at, as well as someone who has the personality to take on a job like Liverpool and to take on the pressures that come with that. And listen, the pressures are only going to get bigger now because we're entering the business end of the season. So we'll see. If he can keep that up, and I think he can. Don't get me wrong, but this is where it's the proof sort of comes really. I mean, he's picking up a lot of yellow cards, is what I would say, which is sort of quite interesting. But I think sort of that's fine. But he's making a lot of good decisions, and he looks in control of the squad, and he's being his own man, and so he deserves a lot of credit too. So, yeah, it's been a really positive transition, like you've said.
I mean, he was pretty animated on the touchline last night, and he sort of gradually got more and more over the last few weeks, especially after the wins with Madrid and City. So, what do Liverpool sort of need to do coming up, really? There's a few tricky games, especially. Obviously, we'll touch on Accrington in a minute and the FA Cup at the weekend, but obviously, straight after that is a really tricky Premier League tie against Nottingham Forest away. And, last season there was a lot of furore, wasn't there, after the win away there last season. Um, we've lost there in the last couple of years as well, so it's going to be a hard match, isn't it? Especially when they're flying at the minute.
Yeah, Forest will be really tricky. They've won 6 in a row. They're the only team who've beaten us so far in the league, and they're full of confidence. I'm sure the atmosphere will be sort of off the scale. They'll see that as the biggest game of their season sort of so far, really. And if they win it, they'll be dreaming of titles. Never mind sort of top 4. But if they lose it, they know that they're still sort of in a really good position, and so it feels like all the pressures on Liverpool. Also, how they play is sort of quite interesting in that even when they're at home, they still try and play as like the away side. Certainly at home to bigger teams, if you like, and so it'll be a game where Liverpool might have quite a lot of the ball and territory, but we'll have to be cautious and careful with it, because if we lose it, Forest will break, and they'll break in real numbers and with real quality, like we saw at Anfield. And so it's a tricky one, really, and you don't want to get too caught between stools on it. You don't, because you don't want to be giving the ball away too much, but at the same time, we are a creative team, and if you've got guys like Trent Alexander-Arnold in the team, Mo Salah, you want them trying to create, and you want them trying to try and use their vision and excellence on the ball. And so it's a tricky one really to sort of find that balance between um it's risk effectively, and it's something that the managers talked about a lot and talked about the team is when to take risks and when is sensible to sort of take risk, and that will be the balance. But you're making split second decisions often with a team that can press well and things like that. So it's going to be a really hard game, but if they can get through it and if they can win it, then it's huge. And so that's another way of sort of looking at it, really. You can look at it as a potential banana skin or a really sort of tough one, or you can look at it and think, yeah, but if they win that's a game where I'm sure Arsenal fans will be watching, maybe Chelsea, if they're still dreaming of the title, thinking, oh, Liverpool are sort of going to slip up here and not least for us themselves. And so if they can win it, especially, coming off the back of a couple of disappointing results, there's Accrington between them, but I sort of don't really feel like Accrington matters that much because it'll be a different side. And so I think, it'll be huge if they can do it. And it's a big test of this kind of newish team.
Most of the talk at the minute seems to be their sort of contract situation. I don't think it's taken over. Slot's pretty clear on that when he comes out in the press conferences. What do you think is going to happen with the three of them, and what's your feeling, John?
I don't know, and I don't know, to be honest with you, and I sort of I swing all over the place with it because a few weeks ago I was pretty sure that Virgil and Salah would sign and that Trent will go to Madrid. That's what I sort of expected to happen. But obviously, the longer it goes on, the less sure you are that any of them will sign, really, because it doesn't look like they're close. Every time you hear from Mo Salah, he says, we're not close. And so you've got to think that the money that they are offering him, because apparently all three of them have had contract offers, but you've got to assume that the money that they're offering Mo, isn't close to what sort of he would expect. They're obviously thinking about his age. He's thinking about his output at the moment, and in a way, sort of both of them are right. But you'd hope a compromise could be made, but it doesn't feel like it's close. And so he can say he wants to stay at Liverpool all he wants, and Liverpool can say that they want to keep him. But how much, how much do both of them sort of want those things? That is the question. So it's sort of hard to say. And I think Liverpool will stick to the guns. And so I don't think Liverpool will give him a contract that they don't think is a good deal for them, just to kind of keep the supporters happy. Virgil, you think would get done because it just sort of feels that the most likely at the moment. It's not a mega complicated deal like the Mo Salah ones. The last Mo Salah contract ended up in the Harvard Business School. Do you know what I mean? Like, these things are very very sort of complex and involving sort of a lot of things, and involve Mo Salah making a lot of money if he's doing very well, but the club, being a little bit cautious if he's not. And so it's not the case of the olden days of someone asking for 10 grand a week, the club wanted to give him 6 and all shaking hands on 8. Those things aren't it's necessarily the way. Trent, I think it's just him deciding what he wants, and if he has decided sort of communicating that, really, I would imagine he's had a good offer because he hasn't got the age sort of issues, really. But there is him deciding sort of what he wants to do next, and only he knows if he's decided that, despite lots of Liverpool fans telling you that they know exactly what's in his head. And so, yeah, it doesn't look like any of them are going to be sorted anytime soon, which is a little bit frustrating. Up until Sunday, I didn't think it was necessarily affecting anyone, but then obviously Trent has a really bad game. How much of that was the contract and how much of it was just someone having a bad game, I'm not sure. I think maybe the Madrid talk had affected him a little bit, and then he started a bit off, and then the crowd really got involved in a negative way, and I think that sort of made it worse. And so so that's something to sort of keep an eye on really and be careful on. But up to that point, I didn't think it had actually affected it too much. In fact, you could make an argument that maybe it had a positive effect on certainly on Salah, who's playing like a man who doesn't know when his last game, is kind of thing, or you know. It's almost yeah. What would you do if it was your last day on earth? Mo Salah's playing like that, and so you could argue that it's actually sort of had a bit of a positive effect up to Sunday when it felt like it sort of swung the other way. So we'll see. But I thought Trent played well last night
Yeah.
when he came on. I thought he was really determined. On the ball, obviously, he was fantastic. But I thought defensively as well, you could see him sort of really trying to track back. There was one where, he loses out to Werner, and he's really kind of you could see, it was something he was conscious of, and he really applied himself to his defending last night as well as playing some outrageous passes, and so that's good. That kind of suggests that whatever was going on in his head on Sunday, he's managed to put out of his mind, which is a positive moving forward because we're going to need him, whether you want like it or not.
Just on transfers, do you think Liverpool are going to be doing any business incoming in January?
I don't know. I think if they were, we'd have sort of heard a little bit more by now. It's getting on now. It's the 9th of January, and there's time to do something. But I just think we'd have heard if a little bit more. I think that it's more likely that they're sort of getting ready for the summer. When Quansah went down yesterday and it looked like an injury, I thought maybe they might be forced into action. But if that's just sort of an illness thing, then you would expect them to be, sorted for the weekend or sort of next week, to be on the bench in that Forest game. And so I just sort of can't see it really. I would like them to because I think it's you know it's always you always want one more. And I think as a football supporter, you think, oh, one more attacking option or one more sort of at the back, or someone just to give us a bit of a boost or a lift. But I think for the manager, he's looking at his squads and thinking, well, there's players I'm struggling to sort of get games for now, and there's younger players who he's maybe got faith in because he's sort of seen them but haven't necessarily had the opportunities, and so I think they will feel that they've got enough, and that unless there's a really someone comes available that they weren't expecting and they feel like really sort of makes them better, which feels unlikely. I just I can't see it personally, but I'd love to be wrong.
Yeah, we'll wait and see on that one. Just a couple of quick fire ones, if I may. Who's your best Liverpool player growing up?
Um, it's probably Gerrard. It probably is. It's the obvious answer for any person sort of my age. But yes, Stevie G's just for the longevity, for the moments. He give me like those big moments sort of growing up in my life that I'll always remember. So I'll go for Gerrard.
And talking in moments, I think we know where this one's going. Best moment as a Liverpool fan?
No, it's not a Gerrard one. It's Barcelona. Really, it's when that it's probably the final whistle against Barcelona. If you're gonna be strict on moments, I mean that whole night was incredible. But when that sort of final whistle went, it was some feeling you'd love to live that again.
Yeah, that was amazing. I was doing a lot for BT Sport during the time on the Champions League for Liverpool, and I actually had that night off, so I managed to watch that one. And yeah, it was unreal, wasn't it? Unreal that night. uh, and then just a couple of sort of more generic ones. Best Premier League striker of all time for you?
Do you know what? It's funny this because I've seen a few people trying to do like the all-time Premier League 11s recently, and so I had a bit of a go in my head, and that number 9 I was struggling with, um, because it's there are so many and they make different arguments. I think I talked before about sort of longevity with Joseph Gerrard, and I think the person who's got the most goals is Alan Shearer, and he was some goal scorer. all round game, phenomenal, and just sort of weight and numbers and consistency. Uh, I think I would plump for Shearer in terms of, you know, uh, a number nine in a one-off game to sort of score you the goal. I think I'd go for him. He was something else, Shearer. So I think if you count the likes of Salah and Henry as more as forwards, I think in my 4-3-3 I had Salah right and Henry left, and then it was that number nine who I was like, so it's funny you sort of bring it up. He was like agonising over, and then I was like, would you go for someone more like Rooney? Who had probably more to his game, but less of a sort of an out and out striker, but still got a lot of goals, or the one who had probably the best game, well, goals to minutes was Aguero, who was sort of phenomenal and always played well against Liverpool, scored goals against Liverpool, scored goals against everyone, to be honest with you. But he was playing in a great Man City team, and so maybe a little bit easier for him than Shearer, who was played for title winning teams, but also started at Southampton and played in an up and down Newcastle side. I think it is fair to say, and so I think I'll plump for Shearer, but yeah, there's a lot of good ones.
Yeah, it's a pretty safe bet, I think, mate. And best defender, we putting Virgil up there ever?
I would, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So this is the other one. So, um, this, yeah. So honestly, it's funny. Yeah, over the last few weeks, I've been picking teams, and then I've been picking other teams and stuff like that. But centre halves until Virgil, I always said John Terry and Rio Ferdinand are you in your Premier League sort of all time 11. So with them two for the longevity, for the quality that he sort of did, and for me, Ferdinand's been shoved out now, and it's Virgil alongside Terry. And I think Virgil's probably your number one, just in terms of. I actually think you can make an argument he's the best defender of all time, in any country at any time. I think I, I obviously haven't seen all of them, but in terms of the ones I've seen, I think you'd really struggle to say that there's one better than him. And so I think even though he hasn't had quite the career maybe that someone like a John Terry or a Ferdinand had in terms of number of years winning trophies, I think in terms of his absolute peak, which he's still at the moment, I don't think anyone touches him.
that's a great shout. Right, John, thanks very much for joining me this morning. You can follow
Oh,
Hey Joe What You Know on YouTube, Insta, and TikTok, and we'll see you soon.